Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the University City Science Center's headquarters, U City Square. This is your host, Herb Cohn, with my co-host, Peter Snelling, Merrill Lynch, Andrew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Denise Lance, Attentive Health, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Joe Berquist, Harleysville Bank, and Dave Johnson, Comstar Technologies. Peter, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today?
Sure, Herb. We're joined by Kelly Davenport, founder and CEO of Friere Charter School Network, Scott Gray, CEO of Clincierge, Cate Heaman, principal and CEO of Prelude Solutions, and Nick Bayer, founder and CEO of Saxby's.
Let's get to know our first guest, Kelly Davenport, founder and CEO of Friere Charter School Network. Kelly, what is Friere Charter School Network?
It's a network of 4 schools, 2,000 students, grades 5 through 8, serving the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Wilmington, Delaware regions.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 1 sister, 1 stepsister, and 3 stepbrothers.
How did all that happen?
Well, my parents split when I was 8 years old.
Uh-huh. And tell us a little bit more about what happened about 8 years old.
Well, as my father was pulling out of the driveway after telling us that the 2 of them were going to separate, that evening my mother took her wedding ring off her finger and put it on mine and said that things would change now. I immediately took that to mean that I needed to take out the trash, make the doctor's appointments, and keep things running.
How did this stuff that happened at 8 years old, including the wedding ring, how did that manifest in you 8 to 14 years old?
Well, at first, I remember almost simultaneously I got elected class president of my 3rd grade class, and friends suddenly became the most important part of my world. So that happened. And then I went into a period, I can't remember much about what happened until my stepfather showed up, soon-to-be stepfather.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
Yeah, so during those years when we were talking about them earlier, you referred to them as blank years. What was going on there?
Blank years. I don't remember them very much. I think there was a lot of change going on in my world, and I had a lot to assimilate to, and it was middle school.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
Kelly, you mentioned that your stepdad was heavy-handed. Did that hurt or help?
I think in the end it certainly helped, but it also really, really hurt all those years.
How did it shape what you're doing now?
I had to confront fear very early in my life, as I was deathly afraid of him, and confronting that fear early, I think, makes me more fearless now.
When you say that why were you fearful of your stepdad?
Totally new, sort of foreign entity in my life who gave me lots of directions and insisted that I be almost voiceless at times.
How'd that make you feel?
Awful, invisible, angry, and very afraid.
What do you do for a living nowadays?
I run a network of schools that supports and leads change in our school system so that kids that can't afford private school and don't get into the select, very few public schools and have fire in their belly can still go to college, plug into society, and make us all proud.
So it sounds to me like what you're doing is making sure that kids that may have come from difficult circumstances like you came from really have support and a helping hand?
I would agree, and I'd also say that they have voice.
And they have voice. All right, Shannon?
Kelly, when you were talking about those blank years in the green room, you mentioned they were from about 4th grade to 8th grade. What changed in 9th grade?
9th grade was when I finally got to high school, and I think I'm sort of an academic at heart, and I loved the questions that the curriculum was asking, and the teachers and the way that they were engaging me to think outside of the small town that I grew up in, and in the house that I had come from, and the current circumstances that I had felt trapped in.
Mm-hmm. David?
I find it interesting the ring being put on your finger at such an early age, and I'm picturing it not fitting, and that being quite a burden. Do you see parallels between that ring and the children that you have to deal with now and what they have to go through?
Well, the ring was sort of a gift, right? At the time, I didn't identify it as, it was neutral for me. It was just what my life was. But it was a gift in that my mother was bestowing faith and courage in me to do something different on the spot and adapt just like that. And certainly the kids that I serve every day are having to do and adapt quickly all the time and be flexible, ready.
Why do you have a smile on your face as you're talking about the kids you serve every day?
They save my life every day.
Excuse me, what are you talking about?
They give me reason, purpose, hope. When they create and they explore, they really are building our future. And right now, that's the best hope we've got, in my opinion. So if I pour everything into them, then really I'm contributing and paying it forward. But at the same time, by doing that, I can justify my own existence.
Drew?
Kelly, you have a very global view of the world, and I'm just curious, when was the first time that you kind of stepped back, looked from a high level, and realized we're sort of all in this together?
I had the privilege of being an exchange student. I had a teacher who saw that I needed to get out of my small town quickly. And so at 17, I was an exchange student to Uruguay, South America. And there they were, it was crazy. There was so much hatred for the United States. I got to witness them burning effigies of Ronald Reagan, singing songs about how much they hated the United States. But bottom line, politics or not, people are people. And I became so clearly identified in heart and mind with the people of South America. And so when I came back, it was my senior year in high school, and I came back to the United States, I had new tools. I could see race, ethnicity, religion, politics, country so differently. And that helped me see how where I grew up was actually not going to be sufficient.
And although they had hate for the U.S., you still saw good in these folks. What did you see in them?
So our culture, I think that we think sometimes more with our head than our heart. But what I saw in Uruguay was people who thought with their heart first and then their head. And I'd never experienced that before. And that I saw that all people, there's good in all people.
Is that the same fire in the belly that you describe of your students? Or?
I think if you boiled it down, yes. I have faith in people. I have faith in the beauty of all of us. And it doesn't matter sort of where you come from or your story. At the end of the day, we all have to connect and do good by each other, for each other.
Joe?
Kelly, who had the most biggest or most profound influence on you?
That's a loaded question. There's so many people, and I think people in general have, but I'm just going to shout out my grandmother who passed away only recently at age 98. I remember when she put her National Honor Society ring in my hand. Sorry, it wasn't a ring. That was the last thing. It was a pin, and she told me that I could do anything.
Wait. Tell us a little bit more about that. How young were you, and who gave that? What happened?
I don't remember how old I was, probably in the 9th grade, but I still have it. It was her pin from National Honor Society, and she placed it right in my hand and said that I could do anything.
Whose mother is this? Is your mother's mother?
My mother's mother.
So that was, do you think that had anything to do with the transformation that Shannon spoke about when you moved from the dark period or the blank period to the,
It very well could have. I was good at school. I knew how to do school, and I got a lot of affirmation in school, not just satisfaction.
So your grandmother really gave you a sense that you could do anything you put. She gave you the support. She gave you you could do whatever you put your. Wait a minute, aren't you your grandmother?
I think I am my grandmother. I really do. And the last 10 years before she died, she would hold my hand and say these words: connection, connection, connection to me. And I think that connection is what runs through me now.
What do you mean?
She was a teacher. She taught very similar population, just at a different time in society. She was a strong, strong woman. I remember her building her back porch by herself, brick by brick.
What else do you remember about her?
How much she loved me.
What are you talking about? You remember. So do you bring that into how do you bring that love into what you do for a living?
I just see that love in every kid I serve, every staff member that I serve.
It says here that you're the It says, I'm reading the paper, it says you're the Friere Charter School Network, and you're the founder and CEO of it. It doesn't sound to me like this is much of a job to you, though, is it?
No, as I said before, this is my passion. It's like it is my fire, and it burns. So it's either going to burn for good or it's going to burn for bad.
Where's the money coming from for this? Where's the money coming from? Do you raise money for this?
Well, approximately 87% of our budget is public dollars.
What's the website address for your organization so we can take a look?
Go to www.frierecharterschools.org.
Let me have that one more time.
www.frierecharterschools.org.
We've been speaking with Kelly Davenport, founder and CEO of Friere Charter School Network here on Executive Leaders Radio. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Scott Gray, CEO of Clincierge. Scott, what is Clincierge?
Clincierge is a clinical trial support services company. We help navigate patients all around the globe to research facilities to participate in clinical trials.
How large or how small is the company, and how many countries are you in?
We have about 120 staff currently, growing, and we reach into 36 different countries around the globe.
How'd you get a job with this company?
I'm the founder.
You're the founder. Where are you from originally?
Originally from Reading, Pennsylvania.
How many brothers and sisters?
2 brothers, 2 sisters.
2 brothers, 2 sisters, and what was going on in your childhood with the brothers and sisters and stuff like that?
Well, my 2 older brothers and 1 older sister are from my mother's first marriage, and then my younger sister and I are from my mother's second marriage.
Your mother was married twice?
She was married 3 times. She divorced my father when I was 13.
All right, this is going to be tough for me to figure out. What was the impact of all this stuff in your childhood?
Well, since my older siblings were out of the house, when my mother divorced my father, it really meant that I had to step up and run the house.
How about that divorce? What did that do to you?
It taught me how to accept responsibility, I think, at a very young age.
Drew?
Scott, when you say run the house, what are you referring to?
My mother worked nights, so it was making her thermoses of coffee and sending her off to work at 11 and making sure that the lawn was mowed and the house was clean and getting a neighbor to help me fix the furnace.
And how old were you when you were doing that?
13 when I started.
And what impact did that have on your mom?
She relied on me. She relied on me to make things happen.
Shannon?
Scott, with all of this going on at 13, what was your outlet? What were you doing for fun?
I read a lot. I worked hard at school. I was in the academic course. And when I was running around with friends in the neighborhood, we built things.
Scott, how young were you when you started pulling together puzzles, tinkering with the junk in the barn, so to speak?
I was 10 or younger when would run around with my neighbor friends, and we would go to their grandfather's barn and find whatever junk we could and try to build things. Like our big project was to build a go-kart and run it down the hill and not die.
And how does that relate to what you're doing today?
So I like to build things. I've been labeled a serial entrepreneur. My current company is not my only company that I've started. And
when you guys went to put that junk together in the barn, what was your role with your friends?
The boss.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood it. So you were trying to figure out.
We should call it leader.
Okay,
yes.
Excuse me. You were involved with figuring out what needed to get done and who was going to do what, and figuring out the same thing you're doing nowadays. David, what are you thinking?
I'm just curious, with all the instability growing up, and knowing that most startup businesses fail, why step off the ledge? Why'd you take the risk to start your own business?
So 25 years ago, when I started the corporate entity that we currently have, it was because I got fired from a place where I thought the management was less than ethical and wanted to control my space.
So as opposed to succumbing to another potential employer, you decided that you were going to create your own environment, huh?
That's right.
Where'd the guts to do that come from?
Well, my mantra was, so either learn how to pay for the used Jaguar sedan that I just bought, or have to move in with my mother.
Denise?
So how young were you when you realized that you were different, Scott?
It was, I would say somewhere between 5 and 10 that, again, because my siblings were at least 7 years older, so I was kind of on my own, read a lot, organized my library. You would have to check a book out of my library if you wanted to read it, and kind of had my own way.
Did you think differently than other people? How did that show up?
I did. I was willing to study and learn and figure out things. And even my older brothers would come to me for advice. Can you help us figure this out? Kind of questions. I know how to do auto mechanic work because I worked with them out in the driveway all the time to figure out things.
So your nature is how's that role with your older brothers have anything to do with your ability to build a business? What's the similarity there?
Well, I saw their dedication in wanting to make their cars better. So, and the persistence and working at it, and that's really how I approach business. Persistence.
Mm-hmm. Joe?
Scott, you were a self-proclaimed oddball, you said in the green room. I'm just curious, what did you mean when you said oddball?
I didn't want to play sports. I wanted to learn languages. I wanted to read. I wanted to learn mechanical things.
And did you face any headwind because of that?
No. I think in my upbringing, as far as where I ended up, it was very, I'll say, guilt-free, that there wasn't an expectation that I had to become something.
And how did that oddball nature, like how does that parlay into what you do today?
It gives me the freedom to be confident of creating my own path.
Being a little different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Joe?
Scott, how young were you when you decided that you needed to help other people?
So I would pinpoint, I guess, the divorce as a first step in helping people, because I was helping my mother, I was helping the family, I helped neighbors with mowing the lawn, and one of my first jobs really was my sister, who meeting a neighbor, coming back on her bicycle and saying, "You need to come here. His tractor is broken, and you can fix it."
So you develop you find a great deal of meaning in being of service.
Yes,
but doesn't that conflict with what Drew was pointing out about doing your own thing?
Well, there's a way of being of service and still. By creating a business that's unique, doing your own thing and creating a business that's unique, and still having that business be of service to others.
I understand now. All right, if we were doing a good interview, what are we missing? What am I missing about you that we should be covering?
Scott, you've had a lot of different paths, and you've been very adaptable in your career from the early travel business, etc. What do you think is the underlying thread, your ability to make those transitions and thrive?
I'm not afraid to fail. So, in that, I'm also competitive, as you would see in my profile, very competitive. So, though not afraid to fail, I do like to win. So I will push and push and push until there's a winning side to what I'm doing.
Do you think getting fired is a good thing?
It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Why?
Yes, why?
My birthday was the next day, so I always view it as the best birthday present I ever got. It was the push that I needed to do my own thing and create my own path.
Scott, if you were given advice to a young entrepreneur that was maybe a little different or does things a different way, what would your advice be?
Well, 2 points, I would say. Make sure that this is yours and that it's speaking who you are and what you've become. And the second, set goals and write them down.
Give me that stuff again.
Make sure that the business is honestly you. I'll rephrase it. And the second would be make sure that you've set goals and written them down.
So basically, it's create something that's really you create. In your case, create something unique as well as make sure you get it done.
That's right.
What's the website address of your organization?
Clincierge.com. That's CLINCIERGE.com.
Let me have that one more time.
Clincierge.com.
And we've been speaking with Scott Gray, CEO of Clincierge, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohn. We'd like to introduce Cate Heaman, Principal and CEO of Prelude Solutions. Cate, what is Prelude Solutions? What are you guys doing?
We are a telecommunications consulting firm, so we go into organizations and we help save money on all of their services and also bring about 250 back-end solutions to the table.
And this organization, this is not your first business, is it?
It is not. This is reborn from a previous business in 2005.
Where you from originally?
The Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area.
And how many brothers and sisters?
I have 5 step-brothers and sisters, but I grew up as an only child.
All right.
And then I have one half-sister.
Right, how did all this happen?
My mother's been married and divorced twice.
Okay. Drew.
Cate, how young were you when you started making money?
I was at the age of 14 when I started making money. I started babysitting right away.
And what did you do after babysitting?
Well, then I actually had 3 jobs at once because it was a seasonal job, and at one point you'd have 3 because I worked at McDonald's, Whitewater Challengers, and Jack Frost.
Wow. Why was it so important for you to work so hard?
I wanted to get out of the house.
Well, why did you want to get out of the house?
It was actually my 3rd house I had lived in, and it was just didn't feel right at the time. It was new. I was at age 14. I had to move in with my real dad and my stepmom, and it was new to me, and I just didn't know.
And what did these work environments provide for you that you enjoyed?
It provided an outlet. You know, I was able to flourish in society and feel part of.
And what made you successful?
First of all, I was really driven. I wanted to be, the employee of the month every time at, McDonald's, right? And I really wanted to work hard, and it drove me.
Shannon?
Cate, earlier in the green room, you mentioned that things started falling apart when your parents got divorced. What did you mean by that?
When I was 14, actually it's 13 when they divorced, I had a really good upbringing. And, I had the nice house with the pool and a great little area to live in. And then I was ripped away from all of that. And I moved to Bensalem, PA from Wilkes-Barre-Scranton and moved into a huge area that was overwhelming.
And going through that experience, how did that motivate you?
it motivated me because I had to be a chameleon. I had to change who I was, and I really wanted to fit in.
Mm-hmm. During that period of transition, who did you turn to for strength? Who helped?
You know, I always had strength in my stepdad and my dad.
And you mentioned a grandmother that was influential.
She was a part of my life since I was, actually one.
How?
Well, she was always loving and caring, and she just brought everybody together. And she didn't. I think she never gave me any hassle in any way, and she just always motivated me to be what I wanted to be. She was loving. The love from her was like nothing I've ever felt.
And how have strong
what do you
women
mean by that?
She had an overwhelming love, and she believed in me, and I wasn't, her biological granddaughter, but I felt like I was.
So how are you the company's grandmother?
Well, I guess I have a lot of love for everybody in my organization. I mean, some of the people have been with me for 8 years from the previous company, and they've watched, they've stood by my side, and they believe in me, and I believe in them as people and what they can do. And I always want to instill in every person that they can do what they want to do.
It's interesting. You use the words ripped from or torn from, and you're all about building oneness, aren't you?
I do. I am. I believe in that.
Who's got the next question?
What did your parents do, Cate?
Well, my real dad and my stepmom were both professors at Wilkes University, English professors, and my mother was more of an entrepreneur, where she went to school at night, and she was a vocational counselor, and my stepdad was a long-time mechanic and worked at Pennsylvania Gas and Water Company.
Now, when we were talking earlier in the green room, you said your mom made her own way and
she
so
did.
forth. How did that influence you?
I think that, I watched all my parents make their own way in different ways, but I think that that's really what drove me to, start my own business.
Earlier we were talking, and you told me you're really proud of something recently. What was that?
I recently earned our Women-Owned Business certification, and it's probably one of the most important things to me right now in my career.
So what's that have to do with Denise's question?
Well, I think that women, I saw my mother's work from a very young age, and I saw them, be part of society and make a difference. My stepmom was a feminist. My mother was an entrepreneur. They had children. They had to make their own way, and it really influenced me. And I also think that there's a lot of diversity and inclusion in this world that needs to be brought out.
So it's really the recognition that you're a woman-owned business. It's important. Is that?
It is.
Who's got the next question?
Yeah. Can you explain? You mentioned that it was important to you to be Employee of the Month at McDonald's, which I saw as kind of an outside validation. And then you mentioned your recent accomplishments with the women's own business. Where does your validation come from now? Is that internal for you, or what drives that for you?
You know what? It comes from my coworkers. I see them really getting excited about building this business, because it's not about me building this business, it's about all of them building this business. And when I see them excited about coming and working at Prelude Solutions, that really makes me, that validates everything I do every day.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
Cate, earlier in the green room, you talked about some of your different personality traits with playing the cello, being a self-professed tomboy, and then kind of your transition in sports. How do you feel that helps you today? There's a couple of themes of relatability and adaptability that you've answered to in some of your questions. How do you feel that all ties together?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. It's like, where I'd play the cello and the mandolin, and then I could not really do that any longer at age 14. I had to throw myself into sports because that was the only thing available to me, because I switched schools. I switched, there was no orchestra, there was no band, there wasn't anything going on. I played the bells, too, in the band. So, I wanted to get into the next thing that I could thrive in. And I wasn't good at field hockey at first when I started, but I ended up being captain of the field hockey team in college and played all through college and started. So those, like that adaptability, that wanting, that drive, it's all innate.
Have you always felt a sense of fearlessness?
No. No. I've always felt a sense that I can do it, but until I did it, I didn't know I could do it. I never had self-confidence.
Mm-hmm. Cate, a lot of kids kind of find themselves in tough situations between, maybe 10 and 15 where they feel like there's a big mountain ahead of them to climb, and you were really faced with that situation. And I'm just curious, what would your advice be? You've blazed your own path, and I'm just curious what you would tell a kid that maybe didn't know his way out.
Well, there is hope, right? And fail fast and fail forward is one of my favorite sayings because, there was a lot of failure. I did a lot of things wrong in those years, and I had to learn from them quickly and adapt very quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like you never gave up. For me to go out on a field hockey team in high school, and not really know how to play the sport, and then ultimately to be very competitive,
you never give up.
Just kept getting up.
You never get up. Yep, get up, suit up, and do it.
So your nature, it's fascinating to me, is definitely being part of something, but you also mentioned something to the effect of it's got to feel right.
Yep.
So it seems to me like if it doesn't feel right, you have comfort or the guts to go ahead and create something that does feel right. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I do believe in believing in your gut, and the universe will give you the answers. And I really, truly believe in that. So I think, sometimes you have to pause and you have to wait for the answer to come to you, and that is the right answer. But you don't think that first answer is always the right answer. So it's really important for me in my business to pause.
And to pay attention to your first instinct?
I would say not necessarily. I would say pay attention to your gut after a while. It will tell you. You will know. It will come. The answers will come.
Wow. What's the website address of this organization known as Prelude Solutions?
It's preludesolutions.com.
PreludeSolutions.com. We've been speaking with Cate Heaman, Principal and CEO of Prelude Solutions here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's ExecutiveLeadersRadio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this business spotlight. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on this show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Nick Baer, who is the founder and CEO of Saxby's. Nick, what is Saxby's?
Saxby's is a mission-driven hospitality company headquartered here in Center City, Philadelphia.
All right. And how large or how small is the organization, et cetera, et cetera?
So we now have 30 cafes, about 850 team members, and nearly 10 of those 30 cafes are experiential learning partnerships with universities that are exclusively designed and run by undergraduate students for full academic credit and full wages.
All right, we're going to figure out in the next 10 minutes how you and why you went ahead and created this. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Chicago.
How many brothers and sisters?
I've got a younger brother, Russ, who is about 15 months younger than me.
Uh-huh. Okay, Denise, next question.
So, Nick, tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, I think like most entrepreneurs, my upbringing has a huge part of why I wanted to become an entrepreneur and the way that I run my business. So my parents started a family with me, and then very quickly thereafter, my brother, way sooner than they wanted to. As teenagers, I think by the time they were 21 years old, they had 2 kids but no education, and pretty much took whatever jobs they could get. For my dad, that was sweeping floors in a warehouse. For my mom, that was working as a receptionist. And for 18 years growing up in their house, we sat around the dinner table on a Sunday, and it was really depressing because the knowledge or the understanding that they were going to have a long commute to a job that they didn't like, that they felt didn't define them properly, was depressing.
And where did you live?
We grew up on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, tough neighborhood. Yeah,
I mean, there's certainly tougher than where we grew up, but there's a lot way nicer than where we grew up. And I think one of the interesting things for me is that looking back on it, most people in the neighborhood didn't necessarily look like us. I got to grow up in a minority-majority neighborhood, and that was pretty awesome. It was tough, but it was pretty awesome in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Nick, can you tell us about what you did over at Drexel University?
Yeah, so almost exactly 4 years ago, I brought a half-baked idea to President Friere of Drexel University, where I saw this sort of the winds of change. Where I first met Herb when he was at Temple, I saw the winds of change were blowing so strongly in higher ed. When I was in school, we didn't teach entrepreneurship. If you wanted to learn how to start or run a business, you had to have an uncle, a neighbor, someone down the street who would teach it to you. But the winds had changed so much in higher ed, we were now teaching entrepreneurship. But in the pedagogy of higher ed, we were looking for something called experiential learning. How do you allow entrepreneurs, business leaders to actually learn by doing? And so I believe that a busy coffee shop like a Saxby's, where you employ 30 to 50 people, does approximately $1 million in revenue, operates 15 hours a day, 7 days a week in a competitive landscape. If you can learn how to run that kind of business, you can run anything. And I believe that it's packaged in a way that young people can actually do it.
Drew?
Nick, we learned about your dad in the green room, and it sounded like he set the bar pretty high for you and was a hard driver. Can you tell us a little about your dad?
Yeah, I mean, my dad is like a super intense guy. Everyone still loves to see my dad. He's almost like a caricature. He's incredibly fit and strong and intimidating and loud and disciplined, but he also has an incredible heart. He's a super tough guy because he grew up in a very tough environment and lost his dad at a young age and one of 5 kids and didn't get an education. He's literally and figuratively had to fight for everything, but he has an amazing heart. And so I think one of the things I've learned from my dad is that my dad never really got the opportunity to be anything but tough. But I've learned that when you do nice things for people and you're good to people, you'll not only enjoy what you do, but the impact that you're going to make in the world is so much greater than just being tough.
Nick, it's almost like you're a perfect blend of your dad in that, you were super competitive, played, major D1 baseball, but at the same time, you just want to do good.
I really do. I mean, that was my difference, back where we grew up, like, I grew up in the 90s in Chicago, and everyone wanted to wear number 23 for Michael Jordan. The only way you got to wear number 23 is you literally fought in the locker room. And whoever won got to wear 23. And I didn't get to wear 23 a whole lot.
Can you tell us the impact that I think it was Mrs. Isham had on you?
Yeah, Mrs. Isham was my 7th grade middle school teacher. She called myself and my parents into the school for an unannounced parent-teacher visit, and I thought I had done something else wrong. But I guess I hadn't. And she said, you know what? Nick needs to go to a little bit different environment. He needs to be challenged differently.
Why did she say that?
You know what I learned when I was graduating college? She said that because the greatest gift anyone could ever give someone is to give them a hand or give them motivation or tell them that they're special and they're great, and that they repay you by going and being great. And so I think she did that because you truly serve yourself by serving others. She was serving herself. She was being a great teacher by going out of her way to serve me.
Do you think about her when you're setting up these coffee shops to help kids become better entrepreneurs?
All the time. And I notice she's also like one of the first people to like anything that I post on social media. She's still my biggest cheerleader.
Joe?
Nick, can you talk a little bit, in the green room earlier, you talked about your first job working at McDonald's. How did that impact you?
It's in the moment, I think it was one of those things where I wish I had a better or different job, but it was really the only job that I could get. I'm so grateful for that job now, though. Jeff Bezos has famously said that the best job he's ever had was working at McDonald's as a kid, because what I got to do there is I got to work with human beings that were very different than me, both human beings behind the line that were working hard every single day and trying to get by, and then serving customers who were very different than us. That's quintessentially what life and what business is about. The people that truly love others and go out of their way to do something for somebody else are those that not only are successful, but love what they do. And so McDonald's is an amazing training ground for that.
David, what are you thinking?
I'm seeing a strong connection here between, you kind of straddle the line between like privilege and poverty growing up, and I would imagine there weren't many people that worked at McDonald's that went to Cornell, and now you're out and you're giving real world application learning to students where they typically just learn in the classroom. Where did that idea come from?
You know what? It is an interesting. I've never thought of it in that way in terms of like the poverty and privilege balance, but it is so important to who I am today. Like the things that I love so much about our company is that we have this mission and we've developed this culture that just permeates across the entire organization. But the way that we mechanize or operationalize that is through experiential learning and through workforce development. We're in a city of Philadelphia, which is one of the fastest growing cities in America. We have all this amazing things happening downtown. We also have incredible poverty. We have the highest poverty rate of any big city in America. Somehow our household income of the poorest people is going down and not up. Businesses like Saxby's are built to help those people. And so what we do now is we have people in my company who have PhDs, and I have people that I've hired out of prison. I have people that we've hired at homeless shelters, and they're not just given a job that they love, but they're given the same opportunity to be able to develop careers. And if I didn't have those life experiences, I don't think that would have ever been on my radar to be able to build a business around that.
Peter?
So this experience growing up in a tough neighborhood, looking over your shoulder, and now you're this expansive, inclusive, inviting hospitality guy. Yeah. What made that happen? What lit you up so that you knew that was the path?
I mean, I remember back in the day, fighting and being tough was just part of what you had to do, and it wasn't what I liked to do. Fortunately, my brother was always bigger than me, and so I always had a really good, tough bodyguard. I liked making people happy. I liked putting smiles on people's faces, but that's tough. When you grow up in a tough neighborhood, it's what we deal with all the time. We hire kids out of West, North, Southwest Philly, and one of the first things we have to teach them is the importance of smiling. I know when they walk down their street and they smile, they're a target. People want to try to take advantage of them, but if you don't smile, one, you're not doing any good for yourself, but you're also not going to be able to get jobs and have careers and be able to develop the way that you can develop. And so for me, I learned at an early age, I didn't want to fight my way out of my neighborhood. I wanted to sort of love my way out of my neighborhood. I wanted to be able to do good for people, and that doors would open up for me, and that's precisely what happened for me, and I want to do that for others.
How did you realize that you wanted to love your way out of if you're in a tough group of circumstances, you're going to fight your way out. How did this light bulb go on that you wanted to love your way out?
I mean, I don't think I knew that in the moment. I look back on it now, though, and I think back on, if people describe me from, knowing me at different stages, everyone will always sort of say the same thing, he's a really nice guy. He likes to, he's sort of, likes to lead, but he likes to do things for other people. And so I don't think I knew at the time that I wanted to love my way out, but I naturally moved in directions where I wanted to do nice things for people, and I don't think my high school would have let me in had I walked in with a chip on my shoulder looking to fight people. I don't think my high school was looking for ways to not let people like me in. I think they let me in because they're like, this kid could probably fit in here.
True.
Nick, I'm just curious, if you're in a game and you got a full count and the game's on the line, I got two questions. What pitch do you throw, and what do you hear your dad telling you?
So my dad's definitely going to say throw the fastball. You got to go. You got to go with your best pitch. My high school baseball coach nicknamed me Nails, not because I had long nails, but because I was tough as nails. I love 3-2 counts. I loved being in those pressure situations, and so I would say I always went with the fastball because that's the best pitch and the best pitch to be able to control. It's also the hardest pitch to hit. And so that's what I went. So I would say probably a strong but a super direct person. One of our core values is care personally, communicate openly. I believe that you have to be direct with people.
What's the website address of Saxby's?
We are hellosaxbys.com.
We've been speaking with Nick Bayer, founder and CEO of Saxby's, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Peter, can you give us a rundown on who else we've had the opportunity of speaking with?
Sure, Herb. We had Kelly Davenport, founder and CEO of Friere Charter School Network. We had Scott Gray, CEO of Clincierge. Cate Heaman, Principal and CEO of Prelude Solutions, and just now Nick Baer, Founder and CEO of Saxby.
I'd like to thank my co-hosts Peter Snelling, Merrill Lynch, Andrew Hanlon, Hanlon Creative, Denise Lance, The Ten of Health, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Joe Berquist at Harleysville Bank, and Dave Johnson, Comstar Technologies, for giving me a hand structure and the questions. They'll be providing a listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders, and thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.